Redditors who work at remote places like forest officers, oil rig workers, etc. What creepy things have you noticed while at work? I used to work in the oil field for a company that sold oil tools for drilling and fracking companies to rent in Bridgeport, Texas. Our yard was next to a women's prison, we shared a fence with them. Sometimes when the ladies would be out on the yard they could see us working on our trucks or just doing random tasks and they would try to flirt with us and show us their tits and shit, and sometimes we would see a fight. Some nights I would get back to the yard really late and it was definitely against the rules for the women to be out in their yard after dark. A couple nights I got back at 11 PM and I was the only one at the yard. I parked my truck all the way in the back like always, and one night specifically as I was walking away from my truck somebody whistled at me. It wasn't faint at all, it was a very loud and clear flirtatious whistle, you know the one. Like the generic whistle that people do when they see someone they think is attractive. That hoot woo whistle. I don't know how else to describe it. But anyway, it creeped me TF out, especially when I looked back and there was nobody there, but it sounded so close. About a week later I got back to the yard late as fuck again, and I was still creeped out by what had happened the week prior. Well, I parked my truck in the same place and started walking away, and I'll be damned if I didn't hear the exact whistle again. I looked back and there was no one to be seen, so I yelled out, "Hoss there," and just dead silence. I picked up my flashlight and shined it at the dark corner of the fence where it was coming from and couldn't see anything. Then I turned around and saw a dark figure standing on the opposite side of the yard in the back where there is never anything or any reason to be back there, plus it was way too late for anyone else to be at our yard. I yelled out, "Hey, what are you doing?" And they just climbed over the fence back to the side of the prison, over the fucking razor wire, and into the darkness. I told my boss the next day, and he said he think he's seen somebody back there at night too, but he never looked into it. Oh, still get so weirded out when I think about it. I spent some time in the peat swamp forests of Borneo studying wild orangutan. We would go into the forest very early around 4 AM. One morning there was a clouded leopard on the trail we used to enter the forest. It was just crouched there watching us. We shouted, tried to act big. One of the indigenous people we worked with even took out his slingshot and shot rocks at it. He missed on purpose, just trying to scare it off. It stayed there for a good 5 minutes watching us before it slowly walked into the thick brush off the cleared trail. When we walked by I shined my light to where it had walked to and could clearly see a pair of reflective eyes only 3 meters away crouched watching us pass. Creepy, but also incredibly cool to see one in person for how critically endangered they are. Working late at night on a remote mine site, changing out a switch in a substation on the edge of the pit. Just me and a quiet room full of gently humming transformers. I finish up and head for the door and I see 3 pairs of red eyes staring through the window. Nothing else visible, just blackness and 3 sets of red eyes. Turns out goat's eyes reflect red at night, and they like staring in windows. I've worked in Canada's north for a few years now in oil and gas. It's pretty creepy when during night shift you realize a moose has just been standing at the tree line staring you down for an unknown length of time. Or finding bear tracks crossing the tracks you just made 5 minutes ago. Honestly, the silence of a snowy forest in the dead of night hundreds of kilometers away from anything is pretty spooky. When your only contact to the outside world is a radio channel nobody's listening to, you feel pretty alone. I used to work in the Gulf of Mexico on oil rigs for years, and it may not exactly be creepy, but I found it really unsettling. In deep open water, the water itself is really clear, so everyone can plainly see all the tuna and barracudas hanging around the rig waiting for the onboard cook to throw off whatever food waste he needs to. Every once in a while a huge great white shark would swim up from underneath and snatch a tuna, and it really took like less than a second. They're really scary. Not my story, but a close friend. He used to deliver newspapers in his Jeep CJ7, which was lifted and had long throw headlights for when he would go camping / off-roading in it. He would be up as early as 3 AM to do his rural route, so he would be alert for deer and other wildlife that might try to cross the road in front of him. He was also big into cryptozoology. He believed in Bigfoot and other cryptids, so his mind was in that zone a lot on those nights/mornings. One early morning he was driving slowly through a curve alongside a pasture when he heard an inhuman wail. He slowed down, and as he came out of the curve his headlights lit up a pair of eyes that had to be 10 feet off the ground. He stopped, backed up and tried to get his lights to illuminate whatever it was. He heard the wail again coming from the direction of the eyes and he started freaking out, thinking he finally saw Bigfoot. As he was scrambling for his camera his eyes adjusted enough to realize what he was actually looking at. The eyes were a bull's, and they were high off the ground, because the bull was currently mounting a cow, which is where the wails came from. Our friend group ribbed him incessantly for that over the years, and any time one of us would see him, we'd ask if he found Bigfoot yet. Working on ships. There was one night I was on a ship sailing through Alaskan waters, and it happened to be my first night ever seeing northern lights. I can't believe how awesome that was. It made the sky clear, made the night look like it was dusk. We were able to see clearly for miles. Few buddies and I hit the roof, or what we call Lido deck, at 1 AM just to gaze at it. An hour or so in, there was 6 of us on top, nearly the entire crew now. A big white spotlight shines at us. We were near land, but where the spotlight was above the water, and it wasn't low enough to be on a ship. This was very high up. It shined on us for about 15 to 20 seconds. Once the light turned off we looked to see what it was. Saw nothing, no trace of an aircraft or anything. Couple minutes go by and the same light shined on us. This time it was on the other side of our vessel, above mountains. Still, unable to see what it was. We all saw it. We all have never seen any aircrafts hovering above these waters, especially at 2 AM. We don't know what it was. We think it might have been some sort of silenced aircraft. The military was probably doing drills or something. But anyways, that was one of the weirder things to happen out on the ocean. I work as a polar bear guard. As in, I escort people across tundra and mountains and protect them from polar bears. I once saw a snowman totem with reindeer antlers coming out of his head. It was deformed, full of bullet holes and rather creepy. I was a field geologist in the outback about 12 hours north of Adelaide. One day I was driving the truck and saw what looked like a flagpole sticking up in the middle of nowhere. I wasn't anywhere near a farm or anywhere else that people would be, so I decided to drive over and check it out. It was a dead dog fully impaled on a spike, like, from butt to mouth. Took some pictures and had my boss call the cops, but for the rest of the assignment I was freaked out that some maniac was out there with me. In my brief stint as a rural health nurse, I was quite unnerved by how many of the families I worked with still practiced ritual animal sacrifice, even though on paper they identify as Catholic. I used to do agricultural work, alone in a field for 10 hours a day kinda thing. The pure amount of times I heard the sound of running and snapped up to see literally nothing there was horrific. I was convinced it was surely animals between the trees for a while, but the weirdest moment was when I heard it loudly from a row of trees next to me and immediately ducked under to see the feet of whatever animal was running by, and there was absolutely nothing. I remember trying to stay calm and walking really fast to the toilet block and sitting in there for a good long while before I came back. I never thought I'd be so freaked out in the daytime, but there wasn't a soul nearby for quite a way and it really amped up my imagination. Merchant seaman here. Nothing particularly creepy. Most of the time you're too focused on not hitting anything, getting position fixes, updating logbooks, etc. to really think about paranormal or spooky shit. But the closest thing to creepy I've experienced recently has been a strange transmission over the radio. It started with a series of Morse code beeps followed by an accented female voice listing off random letters and numbers. Dunno what the fuck that was about. I'm not sure if this counts because it's a farm, but when you live on a farm you work on a farm, so I guess I'll tell it. I grew up on a farm and in high school used to mess with my friends by hiding and making them find me. One night my friend was over and we were waiting on this other guy. We see him pull up, so we take off running to hide. It's funny because they have to wander around somewhere they are unfamiliar with or go ask my parents and be told too bad you'll have to find her. It's like forced hide and seek. Anyway, this one night I saw my friend hide in one building while I ran for the trees. I was hiding under some bushes and heard breathing. Like human breathing. There were no animals around. It creeped me out so bad I ran out of hiding to greet my friend. I felt so uncomfortable for the rest of the night. Sometime during the night my dad heard something and went out to investigate. In the morning he discovered that one of our cows was killed and butchered. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to consider the idea to maybe think about potentially subscribing. Peace.